Class, in Chapter 7, the Secrets to Information Gathering, Michael Wilkinson has provided us a toolbox, if you will, and in this chapter, and listed in Figure 7.1 on page 126, listed in this table are the major information gathering methods used by facilitators. There's 7 major functions that are outlined here, and it starts with gathering facts. This is a question that or a process that we'll be going through when we want to understand how does the process work today. This is a very good example of a technique that works well and is utilized often by business analysts. But what we want to be careful of is that we don't always use the same process every time we have a meeting, or the entire meeting long just utilize one process. If it's time to change the process because we're doing different things, then it's a good idea to understand exactly how the processes work and which process we should use when. The next function identified in Table 7.1 is categorizing. Categorizing utilizes this sample question: what are the key groupings represented by this information? So imagine yourself in a facilitated session which you've been leading, and you've been collecting information for the first part of the meeting, perhaps, and writing what the participants have been stating in long lists. You would utilize categorizing as a way of grouping the information so that you could then provide focused conversation and focused facilitation around each individual group, or perhaps begin assigning processing groups within the facilitated session to go after each one of the groups that you've identified. This can be a challenging process, but it's very useful for the business analyst. The next function is inquiring. The sample question here provided by the text is: what questions do we want to see answered? Our purpose is to have the participants create questions or ask questions of a speaker, a panel, or each other. This can be a rather novel approach and can get a lot of work done with a group by splitting up the work so that the facilitator isn't left with asking each question and recording each question individually, but we're actually distributing the work. And this can provide a great deal of relief for groups, especially when a lot of the information or questions that we want to ask have readily known answers. They just have not been necessarily asked in this specific context before. So although it can't be used all the time, and none of these should be, this one could be particularly powerful. After inquiring, it listed as generating ideas. So perhaps we've gathered a list of problems, and the idea here would be to ask the group, what are the possible ways this problem could be solved? So this is an opportunity for us to begin sharing ideas about how we would like to change things in the organization. When you're doing this type of work, it can be particularly useful to make sure that you get everyone within the participating group to participate, so that you don't have people who are too quiet or have people who are actually offering too much information, dominating the conversation. So if you would like to use round robin or assigned order in asking these questions, it might be very useful, especially around how we're going to solve problems. Remember that if we don't involve people in the solution, it's very likely that very little of the solution that we develop will be used. So it's important to really get people involved here, and making sure that everyone contributes is a key way that a facilitator would accomplish this. Next, prioritizing. The question offered here is, which of these solutions is best? So again, we've done some work. We've perhaps worked our way through our generating ideas about solutions to our problem, the one directly above this particular function, and we now want to begin prioritizing. Which of these solutions is best allows us to go after the solution which seems to hold the most promise first. And getting everyone's consensus on this particular issue or this particular item is a very powerful way in making sure that we have everyone's buy-in and add-in as to what we should go after first in order to make things better. After this is reporting. So perhaps we did distribute our group or our problems amongst our group, and we would like people now to come back and report what they came up with. The question here is, what did your group come up with? Kind of points us in the direction that we must have split our participants up into groups so that we could generate ideas and perhaps then prioritize the ideas that they came up with in their own small group meetings. And now we've brought the entire group back together and we're looking at the very best ideas from each of the group. Getting feedback. This is similar and very much to the retrospective work that we did in week 3 of the class, where I led the class through a conversation where we talked about what was working really well and what were the things that we'd like to change. This is something, getting feedback, that we're asking of each individual session, and this is a great thing to do. There's no need for us to wait for an email after the meeting or to put out a special survey perhaps. If you run your meeting with good time management, you'll be able to have a few minutes left at the end of your session to ask these questions so that you walk away knowing how you could improve next time. And this is so important. It also lets your participants know that you really value them. When we value what people have to say and we believe that they're important to us being successful, we ask them, what worked for you and what could we do better? Class, look at the major process functions again in Table 7.1. Look at them as one continuous list now. Can you see how this could be a very compelling agenda for a single session? Imagine the quality of work and the thought that would result from such a focused session like this one. And note all of the texture and nuance you would have provided as a result of covering these 7 different functions in a single session. Maybe we would have to really focus what it is that we are talking about, but look how much we could get done if we did. We would cover this ground and it would be resolved and the team could move forward. It would be an investment, but we would have an asset as a result of the investment, one that would be durable. Also, consider how varied the session would be. It would be very high energy. There would be a lot of perhaps breaking into small groups and then coming back into the main group, and then perhaps you could benefit by re-splitting and then rejoining. So you could readily break the group into subgroups to identify the questions they want to see answered, and then to bring everyone back together to generate ideas on a solution or ideas on what the priority would be. But to have each group report as to what they came up with, for example, as a result of the work that they've done. And then finally ending on a high note and having everyone in the class together, in the group, participating group, providing feedback as to what worked and what could be improved. So while I'm not saying that this is the way we would have to use this session, I do imagine that we could get through a lot of this in a single session, and I do imagine that this being a very productive session if time allowed for us to pursue all of this and the problem required this level of examination and analysis. This could be a really great way to run just one single meeting.